So this is the 1640 hours GMT edition of the Kudila television channel broadcasting on the internet under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions on Monday, the 8th of May 2023. This is the second day since the absolutely corrupt display staged in the United Kingdom called the coronation of King Brian. And this is also happening at the same time as the implication of the so-called local council elections that took place on the day before, was it 2 days before, the 4th of May, 2 days before the so-called coronation. And the comments being made about the implication of the both events include the Times newspaper running the piece by the mental slave Trevor Terrible Phillips. Now, Terrible Phillips, I think, is hired by the Dirty Digger Rupert Murdoch as part of the agenda to intentionally kind of stage the kind of denial of the truth. No matter what the evidence says, Trevor Terrible Phillips, is there to stage the denial. Denial of the truth. And he is employed to sell his skin, the skin color. In the 1970s, when he was first launched on a television program as the mental slave, as the official mental slave, it was called the London Weekend Show. It's a London weekend television program, which is no longer functioning, but it used to be part of the independent television London operations. And Trevor Terrible Phillips was, without any shame or irony, was selling his skin. I mean, he obviously can sell his skin, so it stands out as the dark opposite of the white inside that he's employed to peddle. To paraphrase Thomas Babington Macaulay, who wrote the notorious racist policies about the British Empire imposing the British colonialist education system on the subcontinent in the 1830s. brown on the outside and English on the inside. So in the case of Trevor Terrible Pea Leaves, who is black on the outside and white on the inside. Trevor Terrible Pea Leaves. So his piece about the, I'm just looking for the actual copy of the Times of Monday. Trevor Terrible Pea Leaves has written on the Times, and I'm looking for it. Today is Monday, the 8th of May, 2023. Trevor Terrible Pea Leaves. So this Times newspaper of Monday, I'm just looking for the actual piece. Times newspaper running the item byline to the mental slave Terrible Pea Leaves. So there's absolutely critical to get the actual contents of the criminal instead of just paraphrasing. I think there is a very significant difference it makes to be able to able to find the that is it. That is the one that I'm looking for, and I found it. It's on page 23 of the Times of Monday, the 8th of May, and the heading reads, "Monarchy blooms while the politicians wilt." And the paraphrase, the subheading is, "The King's mission to unite a diverse nation is beyond parties that are characterized by scandal, name calling, and impotence." Now, this is the kind of glimpse of that page of the Times, page 23. Now, how to get that? That's the glimpse. That's the closest that you can come to the integrated site. And what it is literally, it is the opposite of what is normally happening in the rest of the media. He's saying that the King's mission, that is King Brian's mission to unite a diverse nation, is beyond parties, that is political parties, that are characterized by scandal, name calling, and impotence. Now, that is an absolute lie, because, for a start, the family of King Brian is a broken family, as accurately described by Harry while he was talking about his book, The Spare. Just Spare. He comes from a broken family, which is absolutely true. And the other thing is that the biggest scandal, to hit the British monarchy, the royal family so called, was the scandal personified by Brian, as he then was, who spake to the BBC's Jonathan Dimbo. And Jonathan Dimbo was used as the conduit for Brian, then called Prince of Wales, to disclose his adultery and his treachery and his betrayal of his wife, Diana. His betrayal of his wife, Diana. That left Diana with no alternative but to do her own television interview, which then became associated with Martin Bashir and all the other scandals that are still continuing. But essentially, when Brian spake to Jonathan Dimbo, he spake with such unpleasant, ugly kind of contents that it actually left a very cringe making, everlasting feeling. So Diana's statements by the BBC's Martin Bashir didn't come anywhere near matching the ugliness of Brian. And nothing has happened since Diana's murder in the car in France, in Paris, that has been marked by any reversal in the moral descent, DESCENT, in the royal family, despite the fact that the image manufactured of the late Brenda was that of a dignified person. The events of the last 3 years, let's say, especially centered on the series of revelations concerning the depth of racism that dominates the monarchy, the royal family, have shown that the royal family has been racist and that Brenda, the late Queen Elizabeth II, was the leader in the concealment and denial and suppression of the fact of racism, and also was practicing racism all the way. And even before the so-called book, Harry's book Spare, there have been wide public reporting of the fact that before Harry's first child, Archie, was born, somebody in the royal family wondered what color Archie would be. Now, this takes the fact-checking narrative back to the 5th or 6th of May 2005 on the BBC Newsnight program, when Jeremy Paxman, complete ignorant racist, was interviewing George Galloway. And Paxman was unoriginally and stupidly and falsely quoting or recirculating the statement made by the then Labour MP for West Ham, condemning George Galloway for effectively robbing a black woman, which is what he called Una King, of her seat. To which George Galloway accurately retorted by rejecting both Tony Bonkers, as I call him, as well as Tony Bonkers being retailed by the racist moron Jeremy Paxman. And George Galloway said words to the effect that Una King wasn't black. Her skin was white. Now, if you look at the images of Una King and Meghan Markle, it is quite clear that both of them look similarly white pigmented. They don't look black pigmented, black skinned. Ethnically, they may be traceable as partly black, but in terms of the skin color, they are not black looking. So when Trevor Terrible Phillips talks about the monarchy doing all the nice things, he actually is hiding in denial that has been made his vocation as a mental slave, because that was the argument that had the highest maximum explosive quantity about it, power about it, as to the statement as to what color Meghan Markle's first child with Harry would be. Without any doubt, there was no way that the child, whether it's a male or female, that was about to be born to Meghan with Harry was going to be anything other than white, which is what the baby Archibald turned out to be. It's a white child. And the continues, this scandal continues every day. This is not something that is concealed. The occurrence of scandal around the royal family, so called, is a daily occurrence. So, for the mental slave moron, absolute crook, Trevor Terrible Phillips, saying that monarchy is blooming, it shows that the mental slave has had whatever remnant of brains he had, the brains have been removed. Even somebody as racist and as corrupt as Rod Liddell, who writes a piece in the Sunday Times as well, is saying that the conservatives, after the election on the 4th of May 2023, have been losing the Brexiteer votes in the northeast, like Middlesbrough, he is mentioning in the Sunday Times. And Trevor Terrible Phillips is in absolute denial about that happening. Trevor Terrible Phillips is also in denial about the actual fact checked reality of the number of people in the United Kingdom who can be called, quote, church goers, as he puts it. He said the suburban church going middle classes can no longer look to the Tories to provide reassurance of sound money and social conservatism. Now, what is sound money? The Conservatives never, ever represented sound money, and they never, ever really represented social conservatism. What they have always been about is robbery, selfishness, greed, and corruption, and a denial of society. Social only is possible when the idea of society is recognized. And as the conservatives much wanted Representative Margaret Thatcher said, there is no such thing as society. So, all of those references by the corrupt traitor Trevor Terrible Phillips expose the mental slave as cognitively very embarrassingly limited as well. We shall be, of course, extending on these evidence and topicality of the mental servitude of the likes of Trevor Terrible Phillips in the essay form in the later editions. As for the question of diverse, what is he calling? Diverse nation, united diverse nation. This criminal doesn't say what he is meaning by diverse nation. It's a contradictory term. There is no such thing as a diverse nation in the way that this mental slave shit is using the two words. And the whole idea of a nation is corrupt and non existent and not sustainable by reference to evidence. The fact that there are people of African origin, people of Asian origins, on the island of England and Scotland is clearly, directly related to the fact that the empire, in the case of the subcontinent, the empire was inflicted by the likes of Robert Clive, the crook fronting the East India Company. And the crook, Robert Clive, bribed local crooks and criminals who were too weak and too greedy, and they accepted the bribe. And that led to 190 years of the corruption of the subcontinent until the 1940s. 1757 to 1947, the 190 years. Trevor Terrible Phillips is a shameless mental slave who has no idea about where he comes from. He is in constant ferment, in denial of his own existence. He is a caricature of his biological and ethnic origins and ideas and backgrounds. He is a caricature that would look even more ridiculous if he were to do the plastic operations and apply his mental slavery and distortions and denials. Then did the late Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, who came from a black background and black origins, was a normal, decent looking physical entity before he undertook the series of tortures on his physical body, trying to make it look white. Every assault on his original body was bound to make him less acceptable looking, if you like. The thing that Trevor Terrible Phillips hasn't done is to assault his physical body and keep his perversions to writing and spewing complete ignorant idiocies like the one that appears in the Times owned by Rupert Murdoch today, Monday, the 8th of May 2023. It's the same Murdoch that was desperate to make a settlement, out of court settlement, with the company Dominion voting system in the USA that had sued in the USA, sued the Fox News owned by Murdoch for defamation. And the defamation was actually one term, which is that all the votes that were declared by the counts at the 2020 election were denied by Fox News to such an extent that in depositions that would have been very extensively, embarrassingly publicized throughout the whole world, if the trial had gone on. The trial has been stopped by Murdoch precisely because of that. And Murdoch has paid in the out of court settlement about $1 billion to the company. No matter what they say in the actual details of the agreement, out of court settlement agreement, the facts are out that Fox News was a lying vehicle, and the Tucker Carlson, who has been given the sack as well, was the personification of the evilness of Fox News. So it's that confession by Rupert Murdoch that Fox News lied, and of course Trump lied himself, and that Tucker Carlson and the rest of the team on false news on the night of the election results lied through their teeth. According to the item published today on the internet, that out of court settlement of about £1 billion, I mean, although it's not billion actually, but it is including the other costs, ancillary costs, it should exceed more than £1 billion, is a historic sum. Now, if the lessons, if the evidence of the Tucker Carlson lying and the Fox News lying were repeated and applied to the behavior of the likes of Trevor Terrible Phillips, and if the actual evidence were extrapolated and applied to the Terrible Phillips's lying, then the lies in each piece perpetrated by Trevor Terrible Phillips would warrant, justify claims against the Times newspaper of multiple defamation and lies. So we'll put that up to there at this time, and we shall continue at the essay length in due course in later editions. The contents of the Times about the happy and glorious the description they're using to the coronation is evident in this 2-page kind of poster that wraps the ordinary copy of the Times. And this poster, of course, contains the pictures of William and his wife, Kate. Now, there is no sign of Harry. And the most attention is focused on the smiling face of Kate Middleton, not on even Williams. And the contrast is that Harry isn't there in the picture. And that is literally the tip of the iceberg of the corruption and the deception and the lying and the fabrication there that on which the monarchy is built. It's a complete con. Now on page 37, no, page 17 of Monday's Times, there is a piece featuring this little baby kitten who is absolutely adorable, being held by a human being. And it's a piece how to woo new feline friends and keep them. It's based on the research or a study conducted at the university, Nanterre University in France, who set themselves up in a cat cafe where domesticated cats are free to roam around the customers to see how quickly the cats warm to strangers and which behaviors were most likely to gain their trust and attention, the cats, that is. Researchers measured how long it took for the animals to approach to within 10 centimeters of the experimenta, or how long it took for any of the unimpressed cats to attempt to leave. They found that the cats were keenest to approach when the researchers held out their hand silently or offered a hand with some vocal communication. The study said that this suggests that cats are more sensitive to visual and biomodal communication initiated by the unfamiliar human. The study, published in the journal Animals, found that the cats wagged their tails more vigorously when the experimenter was silent. Charlotte de Monzon, Charlotte de Monzon, it's a French name, of course, the lead researcher said, visual cues might become more important when it comes to an unfamiliar human, underlying once again that cats have developed socio-cognitive skills. Now, this is an insult to the to cats. They have they have lived before humans arrived on the planet. So they're the leaders of what is now being called socio-cognitive skills. This is the picture that appears on the Times website as well. But this is the picture now. How close can the camera kind of approach this vision, this image? You can't because of the instability of the screen. The kittens are very, very intelligent, and we shall be continuing on the intelligence and their other qualities. Now, there is a piece in the Times, comment piece, under the column Thandara. This heading is Company's House is so lax, people are taking the Mickey. Now, by Company's House is meant the so-called official UK government agency that is supposed to register and keep an eye on the registered businesses. And as the headline says, it is a complete con job because the Companies House is practically not active. Now, this is not just confined to the Companies House, it's confined to the police. And I'll come to the police as a contrast to the thuggish, fascistic stunt they created in arresting or staging the arrest of the anti monarchy group Liberty on Saturday. The police are generally lax, partly because most of the police are engaged in committing crimes themselves, rapes, kidnap, assault, and murder. The judiciary is a joke, and the House of Parliament is a joke, and most of the UK parliamentary select committees are jokes as well. And the press, Fleet Street, is complicit. The interview during the weekend that has gone just now with Sophie Ridge, with the proven criminal and the current liar about the NHS on behalf of the political murderer, Keir Starmer, was streeting. The interview with Sophie Ridge on Sky News platform is a telling example of the criminality, dishonesty, and the stupidity and the corruption that will be inflicted on society on top of the corruption, criminality that have been created by the 13 years of the Conservatives, who added to the corruption and criminality that had been created by Tony Blair and Gordon Brown between 1997 to 2010. Wes Streeting is a notorious criminal who murdered an animal while he was a college student for the simple evil purpose of proving to his challengers that he could murder to kill. And the same Wes Streeting supported the DEFRA agenda to do severe damage to baby angel Geronimo. So when he appeared on the Sophie Ridge program and was supposedly there to answer questions about the actions that the Labour Party in power would take about the NHS, Wes Streeting spoke as a machine without any feeling, without any compassion, without any solidarity, and without any humanity whatsoever. Now, the first thing that any health service or any organization that is described as health service must do is to show that it is caring, compassionate, and in solidarity with the people having the various health needs. Right from the beginning in the 1940s, when the National Health Service, the idea of the National Health Service, was officially recognized by the United Kingdom, that virtue, that identity of the NHS has been suppressed. And for nearly 75 years, the NHS has been struggling under the serial denial of that principle, life saving, healing quality by both the main parties that have been alternately in government or in power in government, with the power to do severe damage to the idea of the NHS. So that is what is happening. The NHS being suffocated incessantly every single day. Any experience by people needing health care and health support, either as outpatients in terms of hospital or inpatients or in terms of the contacts with the general practitioners, also known as the GPs, leaves no doubt as to the absence of that quality, without which the NHS would be dead. Most of the people who supposedly operate what is called the wards, the hospital wards, are perceived in general narrative as being nurses, but they're not nurses at all. They are ill trained or untrained and mainly not very properly educated people. And the overwhelming majority of these individuals are of African backgrounds, and to a lesser extent, they're of Asian backgrounds. There is no evidence at any level in the hospitals that can be observed by the inpatients, whatever the length of time the inpatients stay in the hospitals for, of any supervision of these individuals. The concept of care or the idea of caring attitude by these individuals towards the inpatients is firmly absent. This is nothing to do with the lack of money. This is to do with the lack of commitment, lack of education, lack of real educational introduction to the idea of the National Health Service, the idea of caring and concern and compassion. The atmosphere is very dry. The atmosphere, the interaction between these individuals and the inpatients is predominantly, overwhelmingly, one of hostility. These individuals are hostile, unsympathetic, cruel, uncaring, unaccountable. And in many cases, although because there is no audit, these people are causing permanent harm to the inpatients. Now you multiply each interaction between these individuals and the patients and multiply that by the number of people who are inpatients. And you can see the size of the dying NHS. So when Wes Streeting spake on Sky News, appearing on the Sophie Ridge slot, he spake as a machine, as a cruel, heartless machine who had no idea about the NHS in reality, and he couldn't give a shit. And Sophie Ridge didn't probe or examine or interrogate him based on the facts. Because evidently, Sophie Ridge didn't know what actually went on really on the hospital wards or at points of interaction between hospital personnel and the people who are referred to hospitals and are subjected to any number of extremely additionally damaging unending waits as they wait for their appointments in the accident and emergency units. Waits that can last all of 24 hours while they wait there. This itself can cause new illness, let alone aggravate existing illness about which they first make the appointment. So, layers and layers and layers of negligence, incompetence, ignorance, cruelty, lack of solidarity, and most emphatically lack of respect for the people needing health care are killing the NHS. The members of parliament, the so called media, including Sky News and Sophie Ridge, are totally misleading. They're making the misleading statement by not telling the truth about the reality of what goes on in hospitals. And the level of negligence, incompetence, cruelty, lack of solidarity, lack of compassion that are found in hospitals were allowed to be made 1,000 times worse under the COVID emergency. which meant the thousands of people in care homes were allowed to die. This was inevitable. The NHS as a whole is not fit for purpose, not fit for helping people to the extent that people deserve and are entitled to, and which the resources available can provide. And that is not it. So the news or the contextual news based conversation, such as typified by Sophie Ridge, interviewing Wes Streeting. These are caricatures. 1,000 such interviews would not improve the quality of care that people need, because there is nothing at any point that says that the likes of Wes Streeting or a minister currently in the government or a duty of serious care, because that care is crucial to keeping a person alive with due treatment, which can be provided. We shall be continuing on all of these themes in due course. This is ending at 1 hour, 2 minutes. And the time is 17:42 hours GMT on Monday, 8th of May 2023.